3 terror incidents in 3 months. Streatham, following attacks at HMP Whitemoor and London Bridge. All involving Islamic extremist terror offenders, all alleged attackers either in prison or recently released, and all raising serious questions about the state of our justice system. Yesterday's attack was perpetrated by a man who was released from Belmarsh prison less than 2 weeks ago. The speed of the response was rapid. He was being closely watched by armed police. 3 people were injured, 1 man seriously, though his injuries are no longer thought to be life-threatening. There's one question that's blindingly obvious. How did a man considered so high risk he was placed under active police surveillance also qualify for automatic release? The answer to that question is equally simple. He was let out because that's what the law as it stands dictates. Law that the Secretary of State for Justice today said would now change.
The underlying principle has to be that offenders will no longer be released early automatically, and that any release before the end of their sentence will be dependent upon risk assessment by the parole board.
There will be an independent and we would hope robust review of the level of risk that that individual poses if released by a parole board, informed, one would hope, by independent and rigorous expert analysis.
But even as the government attempts to crack down on the automatic release of terror offenders, is it really possible for the parole board to know whether an extremist has changed their ways? Matthew Wilkinson is a former imam, currently researching exactly that question. He's been to prisons up and down the country. Are we good at spotting the de-radicalised versus the people who just say they're de-radicalised but actually aren't?
No, we're not good yet. And it comes back to my previous point. We don't yet have a systematic way of doing it, of reading the signals, of knowing what indicates extremism, what indicates normal, healthy Muslim practice. We don't yet have a systematic way of doing it, so we badly need that.
The number of people put away for Islamist terror offences swelled in the last decade, until 2017. Since then, there's been a 10% fall as releases outnumber new convictions. There are currently 173 such prisoners, representing about 75% of those convicted for terror offences. But there's no consensus as to how to stop them from posing a threat. For example, should extremist prisoners be kept together to stop them from spreading their ideology to other prisoners, or should they be kept apart? At the moment, it's a bit of both. They're spread around the prison network, but concentrated in prisons like Belmarsh, where yesterday's attacker was held, and Whitemoor, the scene of last month's terror attack on 5 prison staff.
On the whole, prison professionals think that dispersal is a better strategy because you give people a chance to change their minds and their behaviour. But you do, of course, then run the risk that they're going to run into people and persuade other people to think like they do.
The new government strategy will also place extra pressure on a prison system that's already creaking at the seams.
It's as bad as it's ever been because we're getting more extremist views and more prolific offenders who are determined to destroy the fabric of our society. And we know for a fact after the emergency legislation that was announced today, they're going to be serving longer. So we need the resource to do that, and we need to decide once and for all how we're going to manage these prisoners.
The UK government is banking on keeping the public safer by locking terror offenders up for longer and trusting in the parole board. But there's no fail-safe policy. Ultimately, telling the fakers from the genuinely reformed can never be an exact science.